Welcome back to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our watch club for Marvel's Hawkeye. No way! Is it time? It's time. All right, Kate. Let's give him hell. Welcome to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Hawkeye Episode 6, the season finale, titled, So This Is Christmas? If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and the MCU in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, well, go do that, and then come right back to join us faster than a speeding arrow. Now, before we all head to the fancy party, let me start by saying our very own Kingpin and fellow host, Kevin the Hawkman Hudson, he's not available this week because he's stuck down a rabbit hole after ingesting a red pill. So instead, let me introduce you to, well, a partner that I'm incredibly proud of. He's a straight shooter whose aim with a camera is right on target. He's Justin Lawrence.
Hey, it's going good. It's going good.
Good. I was gonna say Merry Christmas Eve.
Yes,
I guess for us.
I guess
right?
Christmas Eve, the eve of Christmas Eve of the Christmas Eve.
The eve of it. We're a few eves away. Yeah. I don't know.
I was trying to find my best Hawaiian shirt to wear for today's podcast. But
yeah, man. Apparently everyone needs a good Hawaiian shirt.
That outfit was just like, it was
interesting.
It was interesting. It looked like he was about ready to hit the cruise, right? So I don't know.
I'm not sure what was going on. Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. Listen, we've got the episode is the longest episode of this series, so enough sipping on champagne. Let's get into the final. Let's get into the plot for the final time this season. So our episode starts wasting no time, getting right to seeing Wilson Fisk, Kingpin, meet with Kate's mom as she mentions that she, quote-unquote, handled Armand, and that Jack, her fiancé, is taking the fall for Sloane. But she draws the line when it comes to her daughter, and she tells Kingpin she's done with working with him. She tells him no. So before we talk about Kingpin, this is it. We got the confirmation that Eleanor was the one who took out Armand. Maybe she killed him. I don't know. We got some of those hints in the, sort of earlier episodes in the season that she was kind of nimble. She had sort of, I think you called it with the whole aspect of like when she flips the fruit or something or the carrot stick into her mouth, right? And so, do you think she actually killed Armand here? Like, is that
I don't know.
I was inferring, or
I was thinking after, like, I think we all had this suspicion of this, though, right? We all knew the game that they were playing. So I don't think I was terribly surprised by this scene, nor was I obviously surprised with who she was interacting with and the relation as to why she had to handle Armand was because of her business with the Kingpin. What did intrigue me is obviously the massive amounts of debt that obviously, going back to the first episode, where we see Kate in 2012 with her parents and understanding that obviously that fight that had happened between Eleanor and Kate's father, this is where it started, is with the Kingpin.
Right.
So that's how long he's been in the game, which lines up with Daredevil because he showed up.
Okay, I was going to ask that. I'm like, does it actually line up with sort of the timeline there? Because I guess then he's been doing this for quite some time. Because in Daredevil, the attack on New York's already happened,
he was
right?
pretty low key. In season 1, he obviously exploits the events of New York to benefit his own business and grows exponentially. So again, the big question mark here is how much of the Daredevil series really does come into the fold of the MCU. So if we are to go off of that,
I want to just say the ball's on Eleanor to say no to Wilson Fisk is pretty ballsy. I mean, listen, that's probably the most impressive thing her character did all season, unfortunately, was that conversation. I will say I did find the whole aspect with Jack to be pretty underwhelming. He was just dumb. Is that what we're going off of, or was he actually involved, right? And I think they kind of they dropped the ball a little bit on that reveal. But listen, let's continue here. The aforementioned scene is watched by Kate and Clint in Grill's apartment, and after freaking out about it, Kate tells Clint to go home, and he responds to her by telling her she's his partner and that her mess is his mess, and he's not going anywhere until this is finished. Then we get to see Maya and Fisk interacting as she tells him she needs some time off and that she'll stop chasing the ghosts that she's chasing. Before she leaves, Fisk tells Maya that he loves her, and she responds with the same. After she leaves, he tells Kazi that the people of this city need to be reminded that the city belongs to him. So, Justin, let's talk about D'Onofrio as Kingpin in the MCU. Like absolutely stellar. He's just as good as he always was. I think I'm glad they sort of kept him in his Daredevil form. I know we had some speculation. I know Darcy had some speculation that they would maybe make him into a bit of a bigger,
I think that
maybe
was
more
I think that
comic
was me,
accurate.
actually. I was saying that there was rumors that he was going to be enhanced prosthetically to just make him have a bit more of a stature. But again, I'm glad that they didn't go down that route and they kept him the way he is, because he is dominating. He is towering over people. So I'm glad that they kept him the way he was. And again, this sort of balance that D'Onofrio finds between like crazy madman and mob boss with a plan. There's just such a finesse to his character. There's such a depth to it that feels very much like this entire show, very authentic. He put two and two together about, really reading through Maya and understanding that she had flipped. She's no longer on their side.
Gone.
So she's got to.
And I think I think him saying "I love you" was more him saying goodbye than actually saying "I love you." And she was his uncle, so to speak. But I also want to just shout out the incredible sound work. Like, kudos to the sound engineers and the direction behind these decisions with his character. And obviously the booming footsteps is a little bit cheesy, but the moment where he says the line, "This city belongs to me," right? And they add that extra bass onto the line. I just thought that was so cool, and it was just such a cool way to sort of almost help us like hear his size other than his footsteps, right? It was a little more subtle way to do that, and he was like, he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah, he's so great.
Okay, so Clint informs Kate that they'll need a whole batch of way too dangerous trick arrows. And then we get this really great, sort of cheesy montage scene of them building all the arrows, putting them all together, labeling them with a label maker. And then we get this really sort of poignant moment between Kate and Clint where she tells him about the first day that she ever saw him. And first off, I just want to say the montage of the trick arrows totally reminded me of a Christmas movie of Home Alone.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that was the Home Alone moment. They're preparing for the wet bandits.
Well, there's a couple Christmas movie moments. One people will arguably say, I totally agree with you. This was very much the Home Alone. I think I read that somewhere else too. After that, someone had pointed out there's a very Home Alone-esque vibe, and I think that's
even the sound, the music, and
the sort of cheerful playfulness that was juxtaposed with some of these action moments too was very Home Alone. But I totally dug that. Especially her reaction of like, oh, finally, is it time? It's kind of like like a kid on Christmas Day, right? Getting to open their presents.
Yeah, well, she's the vessel for the audience, right, 100%. In a lot of these scenes, right? And especially as a fan of Hawkeye and finally getting to take advantage of putting together these trick arrows and getting more of these trick arrows. I did love the scene afterwards where, it's just so lovely how they still manage to fit these moments in there, and we get this sort of moment where she reminds him that, it's not superpowers that make him a hero. It's almost like his lack of superpowers that makes him, the bravest Avenger. And I think it really hits that beat, that she's been trying to hit all season for him in explaining that he is, a significant person to her. He is an inspiration to her, right? And I think her talking about that moment and the significance for her of seeing him and how that inspired her, I just thought that was so well done to sort of, there's all these sort of aspects to these narratives, and that was one of the ways they were able to close out that conversation.
100%. That's what that moment felt like. A very small underlining narrative story that runs throughout the entire season that gets that closure. She finally gets to address the fact that Hawkeye is her idol to Clint, and he now gets to hear that and really understand it. after going through everything that they've gone through, and also seeing her development, like seeing how good she really is, and knowing that he played a part in bringing the greatness out of her. I think for a moment it gave time to reflect on what his value is, really. He appreciates himself, right? So,
which he should. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Then we get to the big fancy Christmas party. You got your suit on. Make sure you button the top button there, Justin. It's loose. Yeah, there you go. And we see all the players in place, including the LARPers, which were incredible. We got Yelena, Jack, and Eleanor all in the building. And after Kaze, basically just instantly starts opening fire on Clint, we see the place cleared out thanks to the LARPers of New York, as Clint finds the nearest window to take out Kaze. And Kate is confronted once again by Yelena en route to kill Clint. They battle it out through the building, and then Yelena finally has her shot. She takes her shot at Clint, and she misses. I loved almost like so much of this was so well done. It was the heist sort of vibes that I was getting from it. The LARPers, really being cops in this moment too. Like they're people of the the government, or they're authority figures, right?
They're
so to
FOH,
see them,
man. They're friends of Hawkeye.
Friends of Hawkeye. There we go. But to see them, to see Wendy in that moment where she's like, everybody get down, and she's not scared. She knows what to do in this moment. I think that was a really cool way to highlight them. But I also the banter, dude. The banter between Kate and Yelena. Like
it's
they're gonna become best friends, dude. Like stop making me like you. Like it's so.
No, I think they're
good.
laying a lot of amazing groundwork for their future, right? Like that banter was awesome, and it was very playful. Very excited to see what the future holds for Yelena and Kate.
Yeah, and it didn't come across as cheesy. It came across as so authentic, and I think that's a big part of this show is its authenticity. And I think the moments between them, it almost felt as though when you're watching it, like you're like, oh, Kate knows that Yelena is not a bad person.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like
It.
Kate can tell. She gets it.
Yeah.
Even though she's about to try and kill her.
Well, she doesn't
want
to step. She doesn't want to, and it's funny because she doesn't. At no point in time does she feel the need to assert herself and step in and say, no, you can't do this, because I think she knows that if it was her, she'd be doing the same thing.
But at the same time, Kate's not even afraid in any way. Like she's like,
she
the
fights
moment
back,
with the suit
yeah.
where she points at the suit is so good. Like, oh my gosh, she is just, I'm so enamored with Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop. Like just her like pointing and just that look she gives of like, yeah, I did that. Yeah. All right, so then Kate clumsily drops down the building, unlike Yelena, only to be confronted by the tracksuits. And, talking about moments of closure for these characters, we get an update on the relationship status of Tomas. Who knew that Maroon 5 was the middle ground between seeing and not seeing Imagine Dragons? So good. Clint has one last showdown with Kazi, where afterwards he falls onto a Christmas tree and shares a moment with an owl. Should it have been a hawk, or does it make more sense that it's an owl in New York? I don't know.
I thought it was a bit strange. I think this was the only.
It was for the payoff of the joke.
Exactly,
later, right?
the payoff of the joke with the little van. That was nice. I think that plays a lot better, but I don't think I needed to be like introduced to the bird then to see it. I think the bird could have just flown in and picked it up, and I would have laughed just like I laughed before.
Just as much.
So I don't know what they were going for, but it was cute. It was super cute. It actually felt very like cartoony, right? Just
it was very animated.
Yeah.
It like almost like as if it had like a certain like face, like
the big eyes with the like night. It's like, oh, you're cute.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get a plushie one day.
But that fight scene, that fight scene though with Kazi and Clint they gave an opportunity throughout all of the action that goes through to bring these characters together. And I think Kazi and Clint going at it was something that hasn't been seen yet. They do have a history in the comics, so
yeah. I mean, even in the show, right? You've got all that tension between them, where every single moment Clint has been, one step above Kazi, and even up until this moment when he shoots the arrow, he's one step in front of him, and this is the moment, you hear him say like, I've been waiting for this. Like, this is going to be fun or something like that. And then we see Maya pack up. And then we get that awesome scene with the LARPers of New York in full costume. They're realizing nobody's listening to them as normal people, so they put on their costume. They become true heroes, and they're fighting the tracksuit mafia, and they're saving civilians. I totally called this, by the way. I just, while we're counting the arrows in the bullseye, I totally called this moment, and I was so happy to see it.
Yeah, no, I think it gives them a good payoff for some otherwise very shoehorned scenes throughout the season. So yeah, it was a good sort of closure for them as well, right?
And then Hawkeye escapes the tree onto the skating rink, and then we see yet another incredible display of teamwork and trick arrows. So again, Kate and Clint dropping some dope trick arrows. Did any of those arrows stick out to you at all?
The magnetic one was really cool. I thought that was a lot of fun. It played up with the Christmas vibes as well, just in terms of the lighting decor, if you will.
Sure, yeah.
I liked the Pym one was fantastic, and that joke was a huge hit. Imagine that thing went huge. It would have crushed them and killed them, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Thankfully, it was the one
terrifying.
that made it small.
She grabbed it. I was like, oh, it's the red one. Okay. I literally screamed at my TV. And it would have been crazy, though, if they had a blue one and they shot the owl instead. And it was just a giant owl flying in. Cool. I don't know.
That would be...
and they could have done a Dungeons and Dragons joke and be like, dragons are real.
There's
or something.
There's a giant owl over New York. Swings Spider-Man into the scene to help.
Yes, let's go. But I do want to just say, the moment with the owl picking up the truck, I love how he's like, oh, I gotta ask
Scott about that.
I gotta ask Scott about that one or whatever, right? But dude, that's terrifying. Those guys are gonna be eaten alive. That's horrifying. That was a little much for me. I was like, there's been some brutal stuff in the MCU.
I think that's the dark humor aspect of that joke.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, and then so this sort of next one area of the episode, they did a really good job of sort of jumping between these three conflicts. So I think for us, what we're going to do is we'll just focus on one at a time, if that's cool, even though they jump from scene to scene, just because that way we don't have to jump through it. And, we kind of get the final confrontation between Clint and Yelena, Maya and Kazi, and Kate and Fisk and Eleanor. So let's go over each one. We're going to start with Maya and Kazi. Justin, what did you think of these final moments?
I think it gives closure to these characters. They seemed like they were closer than we actually were able to see. The fact that he knew to speak in sign language to her. He was a bit of a translator, obviously, for most situations. I think that was one of the more underplayed character dynamics, and it still had emotional resonance with it of just how tough it was for her to have to bring herself to kill him, right?
And I'll say this is Froffy's best performance all season, when he's like, this is my life and it was never meant to be yours. That was so well done, and it really worked for me. I think I love how the scene mirrored the death of her dad. When she's holding him in his hands, he even puts his hand on her face. I was kind of happy they didn't do the blood mark again, because that was very much a callback to the comics, but that was already done. So I'm glad they didn't just do it again. I think that would have been a bit cheesy. So I think that was great. And I love, did you notice the only line he didn't speak where he just used ASL was, "I can't walk in both worlds." And I just thought that was so well written for them to sort of direct the character that way. And
yeah, I think that was best acting from Froffy. But I think we got little hints of it throughout. I wasn't actually underwhelmed by him at all. I think he just wasn't necessarily as utilized. Is the more important part that he played his dynamic with Maya.
Yeah. And protecting her, right? Kind of being more of a protector to her than her uncle ever was, really.
Yeah, and she recognizes that. Yeah. That's why she went there to save him.
Right. Let's talk about her uncle and Kate. And, that man took an arrow to the chest like it was a Nerf bullet, Justin.
And he ripped off the car door.
He ripped off a car door.
We never saw that level of strength and brutality. The Daredevil series did a really great job of trying to make Fisk a little bit more real, right?
Human.
In the sense
Yeah.
of like human. He's not somehow like super, super strong. But I think Marvel sort of might be leaning in that direction. Because
do you think it has anything to do with super soldier serum? Do you think we have any juice floating around? Maybe. Do you think that's a possibility?
That is a possibility, and that could be an
Yeah.
interesting way in which they tie his character to the MCU
and to the power broker.
Sure.
Yeah.
To any of that actually could very well be a very good point. Because if
man.
She's trading in super soldier formula, maybe she gives some to Fisk. That's a good idea.
I mean, he's the kingpin.
Yeah,
he's going to get his hands.
He doesn't
on
want
that
anyone protecting him that he can protect himself, right? So
yeah, man. And I think the coin, the fact that they managed to utilize that coin flip specifically with his cufflink, if you noticed, which is so awesome because that's such an integral part to his character. So for that to be the thing that takes him out, it was such a David versus Goliath moment, and I was just so stoked to see Kate get the upper hand on Wilson Fisk.
It's a good comparison, David and Goliath.
Her mom's going to jail now, so do we see her again?
Yeah, I think we see her again. I really don't know what the future is for this series, and if a season 2 is going to happen maybe after Echo. Again, it's not immediate, but again, I think her character can come back, and I think she has some skin in the game. Meaning that, she has some involvement. And I think that, again, Val is obviously involved in this, which is just even interesting to think about how a character like Val, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, is gonna go up against someone like Wilson Fisk alone, right? So
I hope she slaps him in the face or something. Like,
Willie!
You know what I mean?
Just calls him Willie.
Just calls him Willie, and he's like, that's not my name, or something, so good.
Again, I think we'll see her come back if there is a season 2 that may stay a little bit more focused on Kate Bishop.
Yeah, I think Jack is too in love with Eleanor to let her go. So I think, we talk about people that have money. Obviously Armand the 15th or whatever his name is, who peed his pants at the Hamptons, by the way, we all remember it. His dad bailed out Jack. I'm sure the same dad. So we'll have to wait and see. But let's talk about Clint and Yelena. For Clint and Yelena, we kind of both called this last week. We talked about this. This is going to be the finally they're ending this mourning basically of Natasha. They're coming to terms with it, and I think honestly this was the highlight of the episode for myself. I think Florence Pugh's performance was incredible. I couldn't stop seeing the young Yelena from Black Widow in this scene with her crying, and then when she says that she loved her so much, like I just kept seeing her little sister and bigger sister, and I don't know, man. That was such a good moment.
Yeah, again, it was the payoff that we wanted. That was more than just this series, but it was part of the MCU, and we get to see 2 different perspectives have coped with this loss and haven't dealt with it properly.
Yeah,
it's the highlight of the episode from an emotional standpoint of really giving the closure for Clint, because we've seen throughout almost all the episodes him dealing with the loss of Natasha. So I think this was the big closure cap for the episode, and it gave us everything we want. Jeremy Renner is all the other movies that he's done leading up to this series. He hasn't really been able to showcase his acting chops. I think he's had fun with the character Clint Barton, but here he really showed just actually giving Clint heart and personality that just feels again authentic. And it's I have to also just shout out the composer for the series, Christoph Beck, who him weaving in the widow theme in that like soft piano, that just elevated the moment so well. And it's cool how that sort of went from being the theme of that movie to now Yelena's theme. Yeah.
Right. And that's just her character theme. And I love character themes. Obviously, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So, so good. It really hit for me. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't cry like I did in Spider-Man. Like I was blubbering in Spider-Man, but it was still, it really, really worked. And I'm happy to see these 2 characters. I think they're going to move on from the arc, but I know, obviously Natasha will always be a part of them, and it'll be interesting to see. But
I don't think they're enemies anymore, and I think that's that's going to be the big takeaway, just for what their future holds for the MCU, right? Like, this series has done a really good job of making Clint far more interesting than any of the other movies, like I was mentioning before. So
And I know we needed the Black Widow movie to get the gravitas and understanding of Yelena's character for this scene. But this scene did a better job of saying goodbye to Natasha than that whole movie did. So I think this was almost a better sort of goodbye to Natasha's character than, so we get another moment between Maya and Fisk. But if it's all right, I'm going to save that for our prediction segment.
Sure.
Okay. So before we dive into that whole thing, we're going to save that to the end. So let's go to the final few scenes. We see Jack speaking to Wendy Conrad, or Elsbeth of whatever, the LARPer lady, and she discusses her guild with him. Do we see more of her and Jack? In our episode 4 Watch Club, we had Alyssa on who dropped the bombshell that Wendy might be Bombshell from the comics. So do you think this was a setup? Like, they really lingered on this moment a little bit longer of her sort of explaining what LARPing is.
Yeah, I think that, Jack's character, you said it earlier, he's kind of been written as a bit of a goof.
A dummy. Yeah, goofy.
Yeah, and I feel like the fact that he finds some sort of connectivity with LARPers only solidifies that, like, he's not being taken seriously. I don't know. Yeah. Like, if the LARPers come back and the FOH come back in whatever is a future Hawkeye series, then I think we will see Jack Duquesne. I think he regardless, he is a part of Kate Bishop's life. So
yes,
he'll be
for
back.
Sure. I think Tony Dalton is just so excellent as that character, and he does such a good job. I think the result of where they put his character in this final episode, I think only makes it, how he acted in the previous episodes, even more disappointing. And I think the reason that you liked him so much in this episode is because we're given the go ahead. He's a good guy, so we're allowed to like him, and so now his goofiness is likable. I do think though, like the whole aspect of the swordsman and Bombshell, I think as Marvel fans, we might need to start getting used to the ideas that we won't get exactly what's in the comics here. They didn't do that with Kazi, and I think that's for the better for his character. And with the swordsman, we might not actually get to see maybe there's just that scene with him with the sword was the swordsman, and that's all we're really going to get in the MCU. So maybe we have to sort of temper our expectations on some of that. As fun as it is to sort of imagine, like, the swordsman leading a group of LARPers as superheroes or supervillains. I don't know. I think
but I wonder if Jack Duquesne finds his ability to become a hero after seeing Kate and now being a part of LARPers. Like, he suddenly becomes like this other sort of character where he kind of personifies himself as a swordsman. Again, it sounds like a joke. It doesn't take the character actually seriously. But
maybe that's where they're going.
That's where that's where they need to go, though. Yeah. Right? Like you're saying.
Speaking of taking things way too seriously, I loved hearing Orville say, "We're essentially Avengers now." So, like, to the cops when they're interviewing, he's like, "Yeah, we're essentially Avengers." So I just love the idea that he's just gotten that in his head and he thinks he's a full-on Avenger. We see a touching moment where Clint tells Kate he's so proud of her, which that had to be so incredible for Kate to hear that directly from her hero. So then we get to see what Clint and all of us really have been waiting for this entire show, which is him keeping his promise to his daughter and actually showing up for Christmas, this time with a few strays. We get the reveal, let's talk about this, of the watch. And it did actually belong to Laura after all, like the whole internet sort of pointed out. So she was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess.
Yes, of course. She was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was Agent 19.
Okay.
Which is Mockingbird, which everyone had astutely
predicted,
called, including Alyssa. Yeah. From her sleuthing of the online. Yeah. And it is pretty apparent. That's the one thing that about this series is that there were some pretty obvious hints that actually materialize. For example, Kingpin.
Yeah.
Right. Obvious things, and it didn't Nate Fisto into any sort of
anything crazy,
anything crazy, or just not being anything at all. Right.
Yeah. So. And I kind of I honestly, that's a bit refreshing after all the series that we've had. As much as again, I love being on the Mephisto trains, but even the thing with Pizza Dog,
Lucky,
being named Lucky right at the tail end in a part of 8, like it's an ADR line that just was thrown in there. Like, it was a little underwhelming. I wanted more Lucky in general. I don't think we got enough of that dog, but
just the reminder that they needed to walk him all the time.
Right. That was it, which was a good kind of funny callback. We end with sort of a wonderful moment with a Ronin suit barbecue, which I'm just like, why do you ruin a perfectly good barbecue like that? But whatever. Followed by Kate coming up with her name, and she has a few sort of terrible, I think one of them's like Hawk Eve. I liked
Lady
actually
Hawk.
liked Yeah, I liked Hawkshot. I thought that was actually really good. But Clint disagrees.
That's an awful name. That is an awful name.
I love it. And he tells her that he has a different idea, and boom, the title pops
card.
up. Yeah, suggesting obviously she'll be Hawkeye.
100%.
Then we get that after credits. Justin, were you happy with the Christmas present that Marvel gave you with this 4-minute song from Rogers the Musical?
No. So, okay.
No?
Again, we were talking about this before, and I think as a fan on the outside of the MCU, I appreciate the parody qualities of it 100%. Mm-hmm. But when I watch these shows, I do put myself in that
right
MCU mindset. And for me, it's just so to see it, I think it's more of a tool to show how people are so disconnected from actually these events of what happened in the MCU world, that now they've evolved to a point where it's like they can make light of the situation. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's weird.
I mean,
I get the fun quality though.
We haven't watched the full musical, Justin. You don't know. There might be a
reason. It is about Rogers, 100%. It's the
like
story
that.
about Rogers.
Yeah.
It's not a story about the events of 2012. So what they're doing is they're telling us a story about that portion, right? So I totally understand that, but I think the reason why we're seeing that part, got to think, in this series we saw it again in the first episode, right? In the first episode we saw Kate's life forever change after the events of 2012 to a play that's celebrating Captain America and the Avengers and making light of this. It's not the same for everyone. And I
know everything these heroes do is going to be wrapped around some awful, terrible things that are happening outside of the frame, right? But the fact that it was wrapped up in a Christmas present, like, this was just Marvel saying, like, here you go. Like, you can have this. Have fun.
Yeah.
So this brings us to the end of our episode, but it also brings us to our prediction segment, which we call Hit Me With Your Best Shot, where we shoot our final prediction arrows for this scene and these characters. So, Justin, I wanted to sort of bring up that final moment with Maya and Fisk, where we see her pull out a gun, and off screen we hear that gunshot. Is Fisk dead, Justin? I feel like a lot of people watching this are going to be like, they brought him back and they just killed him off
Twitter
again.
blew up all over that, and like people were reacting, and like, I think it was early on when people were that Fisk was going to be in this series, they were posting this comic book panel that had Maya facing off against Fisk with just a gun and him trying to talk her down. And I feel like this is reminiscent of that, right? Like, this series has done a really good job of actually doing some comic callbacks, right? Like, even Fisk's outfit is actually, I believe, from a Spider-Man comic.
Okay.
So I think
with
that
the Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, the Hawaiian shirt. So it does have relevance. It just seems really odd fitting for like the holiday. It does look like he's about ready to leave the country and like jump on a cruise and say bye-bye to New York for the holidays.
Yeah. I'm going to Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Then they wouldn't have gone through all this effort to introduce this character only to him off. We didn't see it. There's no cap towards the end of this episode of, the body of Wilson Fisk was found in an alley. You know what I mean? So the reality is that I think he's still alive. I think that there's going to be more, and I think maybe Maya thinks that she has taken him out, but I don't think he's gone. I think he's going to chase her down.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think that that's going to be a big part of her series when we move forward. So I think that's going to be really interesting.
Okay. I just gotta talk
fire your
about
shot,
this.
bro.
So
hit me with your best
arrow
shot.
is throughout the entire episode, D'Onofrio's face kept doing this twitching thing, and either that's some incredible acting or he's just got an actual twitch. I don't know if D'Onofrio has a twitch or something, but it was so well done. You just imagine he's kind of like this barrel of explosives ready to blow at any moment, and it's so subtle. It's just under his eye is twitching, and so I think that was purposeful. It's on the right side of his face. She has the gun in her right hand, and I think the twitching was foreshadowing You hear the line, he says, family doesn't always see eye to eye. And then they pan away and they shoot. And you were talking about the whole aspect of this show sort of really giving into these sort of cheesy moments, giving into these really sort of foreshadowed moments. And I think that's exactly it. Eye to eye. I think she shoots him in the eye and she shoots his eye out. And I think you're right. I think she thinks he's dead, but he just gets back up and he just doesn't have an eye going forward. I think that could be it. Or the only other thing I was thinking was two other ways she could injure him. Maybe she shoots near his ears and she deafens him, which I think would be really interesting. Or she shoots him in a way that injures his spine and he has to become like this really then we get the comic book hunchback version of Kingpin. I don't know. Do you think any of those have any grounds?
I like the idea of the eye. I just feel like its scene is really interesting just because I don't think it was necessary. Like they already set it up enough that she got Kazi, but Kingpin was next, and that could have been what the series is about. If it's going on the basis of potentially, he's after her, that's kind of interesting. But there's obviously a purpose to it. We know it's MCU, it's Marvel. There's a purpose to it. So I look forward to seeing what that purpose is, because right now I'm like 50-50 on it, in the sense I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I just don't know if I like a robotic eye. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to find out in Echo. I'm so stoked for that. Yeah. So I think that's where they continue that storyline. So, okay. Do you have any other predictions before we wrap up? Or
I'm just trying to think of. Well, I think the other thing too is predicting if this show gets a season 2.
Right.
I think it will, but I just don't know if it's going to be Hawkeye season 2. I like the idea that not everything needs a season 2, but we could see these characters again because it's the MCU, right? I think Loki's very specific because of where it's dealing with. I feel like it would be great to see Kate Bishop maybe show up in Echo, and then maybe after Echo we get a Kate Bishop show, right? That's something different.
Or I mean that could even be Hawkeye season 2, because she will be Hawkeye by that point. But I think you're right. I think to see this character, to see Kate Bishop specifically, maybe scaled back. Much like how Echo was in this season, it wasn't focused fully on Echo, it was focused more on Kate and her relationship with Clint. And so I think, if you do Echo, but then you've got Kate in the same sort of positioning as Echo was in this series, I think that would be really, really a smart way to continue that and to sort of just give us a little bit more closure between her and Clint. I think would be nice. I think it would be really great to see where they sort of end off. So let's get into our overall thoughts and final score, which for this episode, we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 Hawkeyes, and the season, we're going to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 Bishops. So Justin, take it away. So let's get to that final score, which for this episode, we'll be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 Kingpins, and for the entire season, we're going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 Bishops. I thought that was kind of like a
checkmate.
Checkmate, yes, exactly. My friend. There you go. Justin, you go first, my friend.
I gotta say, this episode feels like an early Christmas gift, with a great close to what is a first season. It's filled with action, heart, and Christmas goodness. It gives closure to so much that was established throughout the season in different ways, while also leaving the door wide open, as always, for future stories. A bulk of this is really done in separating the characters into 3 conflicts, allowing each character to shine and grow in some way. And at the same time, this whole divide and conquer mentality really does seem to bring Kate and Clint closer together, to the point where she's spending Christmas with him at the end. I thought that was just such a great way to wrap up this Christmas themed story, is, he brings in some strays, right? I love that.
So cute. Yeah.
I loved seeing D'Onofrio, as we were talking, return as the Kingpin. Much like Spider-Man No Way Home, we got more time with this character than anticipated, but I believe the best is yet to come. I am intrigued with why they would introduce him in one episode while also killing him, or subsequently deking us out. It just makes me interested to know where they're going with his character and what direction they're kind of moving in. Yelena and Clint, you already called it, the emotional closure over the loss of Natasha was awesome. It helped really remind us of the authenticity, the honesty of this series, and keeping it very grounded. I'm glad we got that closure. And as for everything else, they just put a bow on everything. Even the LARPers got their time to shine. So I think that episode did such a good job of just wrapping things up. And for that reason, I am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Kingpins. I pointed out some story things and some weird choices that were made, but those were passable, and I'll get into that as I wrap up for the series. Because for the series, this is probably one of the most consistent Marvel series in the past year of MCU goodness. And I'm talking movies and TV series. Okay, we've gone to some wild places in 2021 in the MCU, starting with WandaVision. This final series of 2021, really, Marvel does hit the mark of being on the real human side of the MCU, and it feels grounded. It feels real in terms of emotions and feelings and themes of grief and loss, vengeance, the effect of what it means to be an Avenger. With all the groundwork established for Hawkeye's character in past MCU content, this series is the perfect reminder of the fact that he is not a superhero, but a man with skills. And they frame this so well with other characters like Kate and Maya. And speaking of Kate and Maya, Haley Steinfeld, Cox, fantastic additions to the MCU. With Florence Pugh in the mix as well, seeing her and Kate banter, it just excites me for their future moving into, what will be the future MCU dynamic duo, if you ask me. The intro of Kingpin, already mentioned, called it. Everyone called it. The hints were very obvious, and I'm glad that it didn't Nate Fisto, and it actually came to fruition. I'll be interested to see him again. And D'Onofrio, obviously, being that character, just bravo. But again, Jeremy Renner, really, he brought his acting chops. He gave some emotional depth to Clint Barton, more so than any past installments of MCU movies. As I mentioned, there were some odd narrative choices throughout the series. Pacing was a bit odd per episode. Small things felt untidied and a bit sloppy. But by all standards, though, it really didn't affect my score per episode. And there were so many more positives that outweighed the negatives, as every episode just struck a balance of drama, humor, action, and Christmas glee. The show is a solid example of the real stories that can still be told in the MCU that don't involve multiversal elements or galactical threats, but can be action-packed, heartfelt, Christmas-inspired, and a hero's journey that feels honest, authentic, and personal, and serves as a reminder of just how big the MCU really is. I'm giving this series a 5 out of 5 bishops. I fucking love it.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I'm kind of on the same page. I mean, it feels like you read my final thoughts, because I literally have words like bow and other stuff written down here.
Man, I've learned from you to incorporate some Christmas puns or puns in general.
Yeah,
so.
puns in general.
Yeah.
This episode for me was really, really, really good. I think, coming off of Spider-Man No Way Home, it's really tough to come into this and not get every single fan moment, like getting a better payoff with Jack, like we discussed, getting more of Lucky the pizza dog, getting a payoff with that character. But overall, I think this episode does a great job, like you said, closing out these narratives, jumping between these moments with these characters in a way that was paced so much better than in some of the previous episodes. I think they nailed the pacing, jumping between the major conflicts in the final act, and time flies through these action moments, but the showrunners do such a good job of still finding these little pockets of moments to give us this really beautiful and deep sort of character growth between these characters in these little conversations that they have. And I really love that moment. I think it's probably my favorite moment with Kate in the episode, when she does tell him her story of him inspiring her. I know that the episode doesn't really, I don't think it leaves us with any sort of mind-blowing reveal or cliffhanger. But honestly,
it doesn't need it.
It's kind of no, and it's kind of refreshing. I'm not going to lie. Again, we talk about the show being so grounded and so set in reality. That's fine. If we don't have this big, giant, massive, oh my gosh, at the end, that's okay. And I think it's just sort of, they wrapped up the miniseries with a bow, and they said, Merry Christmas. So I'm feeling really festive, Justin, and really happy with this finale. So I'm actually going to give this finale 5 out of 5 kingpins. Yeah. I'm stoked. I dug it. Now for the series, I'm a little bit. I might be a little bit lesser than you for this one. Just a little bit. I think overall the show does a really phenomenal job, just like all these Marvel shows, of taking a character that really wasn't that loved before and elevating them so much, while at the same time introducing us to his replacement with Kate. I think they just did such a good job. If this is the send-off for Clint Barton, this was great. This was so lovely, and I hope we get to see more of her and her mentor. But to see her and the way she reacted to him throughout the series, and the way he sort of grew throughout the series as well, I do hope we get a little bit more before they part ways forever. But I think the show also does such a good job of highlighting the Marvel's second deaf character in the MCU with grace. With a way that is not it's done so
with strength.
Well. With strength,
yeah, her
exactly.
Her differences are looked at as strengths.
Absolutely, and that's how they should be looked at. And I 100%. Think that's how more people in this world need to look at them. And I think this show does a great job. And again, a lot of people look at this pop culture stuff like we do because we're big geeks as inspiration for how we should live our lives in a lot of ways. And I'm really stoked that they were able to highlight that. And I think they're gonna going forward with Echo. I think they're gonna really really do that a wonderful service as well. And I just think the show does such a great job of balancing, Kate's origin story while mirroring Echo's origin story. We talked a little bit about this in some of our other episodes. I think the episode was called Echoes. And so it just does such a good job of actually showing how close they actually are together and their experiences. I do think, though, that this show, this season, does have one major dip in its 4th episode. It slows down a bit too much for my liking, and then the 5th episode is just messy. I do really think it's very messy, and they kind of go all over the place more than I wanted to with their pacing and their scene breaks. But I'm just so satisfied with what we got. I want more Echo. I want more Fisk, and I hopefully I thought we better get more Pizza Dog. I want more Pizza Dog. So because I want more Pizza Dog, I'm going to give this series, and for the other reasons I talked about, a really, really high 4.5 out of 5 bishops. All right. That is it for this week and for this Watch Club. Justin, we made it.
We made it
through another Watch Club.
I know.
It's crazy. It's only 6 episodes, so that's fine.
We got another one coming, though.
Right? We'll get to it. We hope you enjoyed this Watch Club. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, listen, let me reach into my quiver here, and I'm gonna shoot this Pym Tech arrow over to my trusty partner, and he can tell you how we can reach us. Here, let me.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. They can also reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, my gosh. Are you okay?
That was scary.
Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest shows and movies out now, including our spoiler-free reviews for Don't Look Up and The Kingsman, as well as we've got our Spider-Man rewatch episodes. So if you haven't gotten all the way into the latest Spider-Man, or you want to revisit those older Spider-Mans now that you've seen Spider-Man No Way Home, check those out. We talk about Tobey and Garfield, and then we have another episode centered around our beloved Tom Holland Spider-Man. And then we also have our spoiler-filled review and reaction for Spider-Man No Way Home. It's a great thing to listen to if you love these watch clubs. It very much feels like a watch club for Spider-Man No Way Home, where we just give all of our thoughts on all those amazing fan moments. So definitely check that out. We're going to be a bit delayed with our Matrix coverage. So just with the holidays and Kevin taking that red pill, I hope he comes back at some point. We'll be back for sure. And we are going to be having our next watch club, as Justin pointed out, for the Book of Boba Fett when it releases next week. So Please subscribe so you can listen to all that geeky goodness. If this is the last time you're hearing us, though, in 2021, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a very happy holidays with your families in whatever holidays you celebrate, and I hope you have a wonderful New Year as well.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Geekmas.
Merry Geekmas. Let's go. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say,
Good boy. Pizza dog.
dog.